Yay! What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 263.
We are up there.
Yeah, we're officially up there. Tonight's episode, like the Western States talk has already started in this household. It's actually been on our docket for weeks now. But the anticipation for the big dance is real. Western States 100, the original 100-mile race, is coming up. Is it 12 days? No, it's more than that. 14, 12? 12 days. The math in my head was correct. That is ridiculous that we're already 12 days away. But our guest tonight comes to us all the way from Australia, but she's actually in Northern California right now, prepping and training, and I'm assuming putting the bow on all of this training for the big dance. Very excited to have Lucy Bartholomew on tonight's episode of Ginger Runner Live. It's one of those episodes I'm excited that everything sort of works out because
we're
we wouldn't
all
normally
in the same time zone.
Yeah, time zones. Normally we wouldn't get to have her on because of Australian time versus US time. It does get off. It's not the same. So for her to be in the States and for her to be available tonight is wonderfully fortuitous, and we're very excited to have Lucy Bartholomew on tonight's episode. I'm so excited. So sit back, relax, grab your beverage of choice. Ginger Runner Live episode number 263 begins now.
Ginger Runner.
Yay!
You okay?
I've lost my voice. I lost my voice in the last 10 seconds for some reason. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 263. Very excited about tonight's episode.
Yes.
Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us tonight. Our guest, Lucy Bartholomew, placed third last year at Western States 100, has won so many ultras.
Super talented,
very young, and has this incredible career ahead of her. And we have so much to talk about tonight because Western States 100 is 12 days away.
Mm-hmm.
The anticipation is real. The fields on both sides, both female and male, are, of course, we always say it, they're stacked.
Every year we're like, this is the best women's race we're going to see. This is amazing. But I feel like every year it just keeps getting better and better. And there's like more excitement around it.
The caliber of talent that come year after year is just, it's astounding. It's deep.
Yeah.
So tonight we are joined by Lucy. She's going to talk to us all about the experience last year, what happened between last year and this year, the training and preparation for this year, how it differed, and what it's like to travel from Australia to the US for such a historic race. I'm really excited to sort of talk to her about that dynamic. Before we introduce our guest, though, of course, I'm your host, Ethan, and
I'm Kim. And as always, there's actually, I shouldn't say as always, because we seem to have a lot of new viewers in the chat room tonight, which is always very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So for those new and old, we are live. We have Lucy with us. If you guys have questions for Lucy, you can ask them throughout the hour. We have a lot of excitement already. There's already people saying we're wearing our Team Lucy shirts right now.
That's another thing I want to talk to her about because she's doing something really unique and really cool. And this started last year at Western States with the watermelon. I want to ask her about why watermelon, what's so important about that, and how that sort of transcended into a brand. And she's so young and has already created this really cool following and brand. It's going to be an exciting topic of conversation. So before we introduce Lucy, of course, we are live, but we always like to thank some individuals at the top of every show, and that is our Patreon supporters, those who support us on a monthly basis. They are the reason we're able to do these live shows full time, as well as reviews and films. It is because of them that we're able to make this our job. So big shout out to our Patreon supporters. If you would like to join, become a supporter of everything we do here, patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $1 a month. And you get some really cool perks, including tonight's after show with Lucy. You will get access to that immediately. 3 individuals in particular we like to thank because they're at that top tier. Chris Lee in Hong Kong. Actually just spoke to him last week. There's a lot going in Hong Kong right now. So I just want to send a personal message to Chris, and a lot of our thoughts and love go to him, his family, and the entire country of Hong Kong. Lots going on there right now. So just sending him our thoughts, and he's updating the Patreon crew in real time on Facebook.
Yes.
Which is really interesting and fascinating to sort of follow along as we know someone there. Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They redesigned the gingerrunner.com website. Fantastic company, but Rick is also an ultra runner, and he's got some stout races this summer, including Fat Dog 120, Sinister 7. He ran Tiger Claw, our race, and just crushed it. Big shout out to Rick. And finally, Brian Sands, a wonderful supporter, incredible story, truly inspiring. Lost over 100 pounds, trained for his first marathon, crushed it. Trained for his first 50K, crushed it. Trained for his first 50 miler, and he's in that process now. He's setting goals and achieving them, and it's a really wonderful story. And Brian has been just a huge supporter of everything that we've done here. So big shout out to those 3 individuals. I think it's time.
The chat room is hype. There's a lot of Aussies in there.
I love that. I love it. We have a huge Australian contingent that follows and watches our show. And when we get a guest like Lucy that's free and able to join us, it's a wonderful thing. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, not from Australia, but from Auburn, California currently, but obviously Australian, Lucy Bartholomew.
Yay!
Hey.
How are
Hi.
you?
Welcome.
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you traveling all the way from Australia just for this show.
Yeah, things I do for you guys.
First and foremost, it is awesome to have you on the show. It's not often we get to bring in not only an all-star athlete of your caliber, but one from Australia. Like the time zone difference just makes it really difficult for us to do a live show and bring in guests from out of country. So you're not in Australia currently. How long have you been in the US, and what brought you here specifically?
Yeah, so I've been in the US since May 21. So just on about a month. And yeah, I'm here for the Western States 100, but I'm kicking on after that and spending another month just hanging out and seeing the country. Yeah.
Have you been to the States before outside of the racing environment?
Like last year, I did the same thing. I came early, and then after Western States, I explored and went to Mexico, and then to Colorado and Utah. But they've always kind of been with like a race in the back of my head, whether it be Trans Rockies or to go see Hard Rock. But I think this time it'll be a little different. I'll just be a little bit freer afterwards.
Are you anticipating any East Coast visits? People in the chat room, we have a huge East Coast contingent too.
Oh, I'm open for anything. Now that Hard Rock's canceled, I'm not really sure where I'm going. So, yeah, I haven't booked any tickets. I'll just end up somewhere. So I very well could be on the East Coast.
I mean, that's cool. Like the ability to be able to come over here and sort of prep for a race like this, but then also give yourself that open-ended exploration afterwards. You can kind of go where the wander spirit asks, kind of beckons. That's cool.
I feel like you totally need that. I think when I fly into the States and I came straight to Auburn, and last year I didn't even see San Francisco.
Oh.
And you're just like, everyone's like, oh, so you went to San Fran? And I was like, no, I went to Auburn. And they were like, where's that? And what I see in countries is not necessarily like the major things. And so I need that time. I really like to take the time afterwards to really get to know the country other than a race.
I feel like there's so much that I've been wanting to talk about with Lucy that I'm going to attempt to go back. So let's start with just sort of your origin story, only because you're young, but you started ultra running even younger. I mean, you've been running ultras, I'm guessing, since 2012. That's sort of what I'm gathering, somewhere around then.
Correct. Yeah. So
you were 16?
I was 15 when I ran my first 100K. And then, yeah, so the way it all started was, like I ran at school. A lot of, especially in the US, you talk about track runners and cross country runners, and that's not really such a big thing in Australia. I ran at school purely because, you had to, you were forced to.
Oh,
and then I started to realize that when you did good, you got more days off. So I trained really hard purely for the idea that then I could just get more days off school and progress through. And then when we stopped having to run, I stopped running and I did a lot of team sports and loved the community side of things. And my dad was always running marathons throughout this time. And then he, as he got older, he was getting more and more slower. He was getting further and further away from that 3-hour mark that he had always worshipped. So he decided to go longer because then the expectation was gone. And so that was exciting for him. So he signed up for a race in Sydney that was then called the North Face 100, or is now called Ultra Trail Australia.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so he trained for that. And I would see him go out for these runs, and I'd see the way that people would like totally be like, whoa, you're running 100 Ks. And I was like, oh yeah, like sweet, that's cool. And it just like, I don't think, because I was so young, I'd never driven that far, so I didn't have an idea of how long that was. I was just like, oh, it's a 3-digit number and it's pretty high. And then, I barely got to see him between work and training for this 100K. So I decided to join him like on the bike and stuff. And we'd go away for these weekends. And for me, these weekends were more about like, I got to go camping and see a bit of Australia and spend time with him. And then we'd come back and find the best cafe to eat food. And it was more about like the experience. It was never like training, and it was never about hours and kilometers. Well, it was for him, but not for me. And then we went up to the Blue Mountains, and I got to go with him because he thought that I'd been such a big part of the whole build-up. And he waved at me from the start line. And then I was like, this 14-year-old girl. And I was like, well, now what do I do for the next 16 hours? And I was like, great parent just left me at this starting line. And so I did what I kind of learned to do. And I put all his stuff that he'd given me to meet him at checkpoints. And I ended up just running the course and getting to the checkpoints faster than he did, unloading all his stuff. And he'd come in and be like all high and mighty and be like, oh, the hills. And I was like, yeah, I went up those hills. I went faster than you. And I was carrying all your shit you'd given me. And yeah, like the race director was like, when you're 18, you have to come back to this race. And so I saw him finish, but it wasn't like so much seeing him. It was seeing like the front of the pack, like the good runners, like Brendan Davies of Australia and stuff, seeing them like moving so swiftly on these trails. And then seeing the middle of the pack, like my dad, but then seeing like the back of the pack and these people like cake in one hand and Coke in the other hand, just like walking through the mountains. And I was like, this is a sport. This is brilliant. Like I can do this. And then that's where it all began.
I feel like Lucy just described me, cake in one hand, Coke in the other, just walking through the mountains.
Lucy, I got to give it to you. Your storytelling is on point because you started and ended with the perfect bookends. One, you started with saying running gets you days off of school.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm like, I want to move to Australia. Yeah. And then you ended with cake and soda at the end. I'm like, Australia sounds perfect. Like everything and in between is just amazing. What an incredible story to...
Yeah.
One, it's clear that your connection with your dad and your connection to the mountains and to the outdoors, it's deeply ingrained within you. And we see that through your Instagram posts and a lot of your adventures that you share with us and stuff like that. It's really wonderful to see. But I love that started at such a young age, that the running also became a part of it, and less of like the stress of running, but more just the passion of it, just sort of that pure enjoyment of getting out into the outdoors and pushing the miles. And I also love just that you would run to the aid stations before your dad would get there. And he'd be like, oh, it's so tough. And you're like, yeah, I know. I was here first.
And here are all your things
that
I've laid out for you.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think that like it's always been kind of about that. And that's why like I started at 14 and I'm 23 now, and I'm still running and I still have that love, because I've never really been someone that has done well when I've been told what to do and had like a really strict plan. And it's always been like me and dad, if we'd just kind of go out until we had nothing to talk about, and then we'd go back and then we'd just like talk about which cafe we were going to eat at and what we were going to order. And, it was more about like the whole experience. It wasn't about the actual exercise we were doing. That was just kind of a means of catching up. Yeah.
It's simple. And I love that. Again, we are live with Lucy Bartholomew, kind of rehashing some of her history with the sport and her growth in it. But we do have so many live questions, and we got to get to some of those. Kim, what do we got?
Yeah, I'm just trying to wade through them all right now. Let's see here. There's a question from Rowan in the chat room, and they asked, what's it like being an Australian rep for Ultrarunning? Does that have any pressure on you?
No, not really. I think it's really cool. I think that like Australian Ultrarunning is kind of new. It's not like we don't have like the Gordy Ainsleys and like the whole like real long standing legends as much. So I kind of feel like, especially being young, I'm kind of paving this whole path so I can make it what I want. So yeah, I guess it's, like Australia is just like super supportive, and everyone there, it's kind of all new territory. So we're all just like making it up as we go.
I love that you're an ambassador for a country. I mean, as much as, I mean, Western States isn't the Olympics or anything like that, but there is this bringing together of people from around the world. And you're one of the bigger names from Australia that will be there for sure. And it's, if not the biggest, and it's a really cool thing that I imagine. Does it add weight? Does it add that sort of stress, or is it freeing or exciting in that sense?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think, we only have, I think Australia has maybe 4 runners in Western States this year. So Australia, like, we sort them out, and we like seriously support them and make sure that they're, like they get covered in what's happening in the race. But with that comes pressure. I mean,
Sure.
and whether it's an external thing or whether it's just me making it up for myself. But I want to do Australia proud, and I want to do all the people that are following along proud. So, yeah, I want to give my best and do it for them.
Awesome. Let's get to some more of those live questions.
Yeah, there's a few questions regarding the same topic here. C. Mentooth asked, how is Australian running community different than the community in the States? So there's been several people kind of asking, are there any major differences, things that you've noticed?
I think not really. I think that Americans and Australians, we kind of have that same thing of like beer and running and that really relaxed kind of running style. Like if you ask me from Australian ultra community compared to European, it's very different. But I feel like, when the Salomon team gets together, the Australians, the Americans, and the South Africans get along. We all have the same jokes. We laugh at the same things. Sarcasm comes across really well. And then you got like the French and the more European, and the jokes kind of fall flat, and it's all like, are you insulting me? Or so I feel like it's really, really similar in terms of the balance, and it's not like as competitive on, training runs and stuff. It's really, really relaxed.
I feel like that connection to, we do have European viewers, a lot of them, and a lot of the times sarcasm's my second language, and it doesn't always translate, and that's one of the roughest parts. Is people be like, "Hey, you said this thing on the show. Is this serious? Like, what do I need to think of?" I was like, "No, that was a joke. It was purely a joke." I backtrack. So I can imagine for you, it's drinking beers and trail running is one thing, but they take it seriously over there. Not that we don't, but it's a it's a lifestyle in Europe for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I think like I was talking to someone the other day, I think just at the running shop here, and we were talking about like, you look at like ultra shoes, and ultra shoes are like wide and like they like move, like it's like there's a lot of space, and you guys wear cotton t-shirts and you wear a handheld, and it's very relaxed. You can go with your shirt off and just go running. In Europe, it's like narrow shoes, like Salomon's. Everything's compression and tight fitting, and it's just like I feel like that it kind of reiterates the people that are in it and how they like focus on it. And like Australia, we want to be American. We want to go running without anything, but we have everything wants to kill you. So you need to have like the snake bandages and the first aid kits and the personal locator beacons. So we want to be American, but we dress like we have all the stuff like the Europeans. We don't know what we are yet.
I love the pursuit of who you are, like a pursuit of character and individual identity. We will learn this over the years with Australian ultra running. I can't wait to follow along and see what Australian ultra running means 5 years from now.
It means everything will kill you.
Yeah, but I love that too, because everything I've heard, Australia is just the world there wants to just kill you. The snakes, the spiders, the scorpions, all the.
There was somebody in the chat room just saying they were hoping that Lucy would coerce us into like coming to race there, and I was like, yeah, this is amazing. We've always wanted to go there and race, and now I'm like, everything's gonna kill me.
It's not all cake, yeah. It is not all cake.
No, but like since I've been here, I've seen a bobcat and a bear, and I've been attacked by poison oak. And I've been like, this isn't a safe place either. So I think you'd be fine in Australia.
All right.
Yeah, going to any major metropolitan city will also prove that everyone there just wants to kill you. The cities are crazy. I want to start talking a little bit about last year's states. So that was sort of your first big stage here in the U.S. People were learning all about you, and there was this big ramp up to that year. Had an incredible lineup, both men and women. For you, what was it like to come to states to run the first 100? Was it overwhelming? Were you lost in the like bliss of it all? What was sort of your approach to last year's race?
Yeah, so I learned about Western states watching Unbroken, or Unbreakable, whatever it's called. Yeah, and it was something that me and Dad were like, yeah, we just want to do it. And so Dad had been putting in for the lottery, and he's in his 6th year now of trying to get in. And I was always kind of, I'll just put my lottery in and just kind of wait. And then I remember at the end of 2017, I'd done a lot of 100K races, and I was like, I think next year maybe I'll do the Golden Trail series and do something a little shorter. And I was like super stoked on it. And and then I got this email from Ultra Trail World Tour, and they were like, great, you're in for Western States. And I was like, well, I'm not turning that down. So I canceled all the other flights, scratched all my plans, and began to build up for Western States. And for me, I went there. It was my first 100 miles. It was my first time to the US. And I was just like, everything's a PB that I do here. If you haven't done it before, then it's all new, and you're always going to be doing your best. And so it was just something that I wanted to tick off and be like, yep, done states, move on. And I totally didn't expect the day that I had. So I was just out there with the intention of like, even if I blow up and walk it in, it's a PB for me.
I can imagine, was your dad upset that he wasn't the one running it, or was he like full on, I'm here for you, Lucy?
No. So when I called him after getting the email, it was like silence on the other end. And I was like, hello? And I said, oh, and then someone interviewed him and said, oh, how are you feeling about Lucy running Western States? And most parents would be like, oh, like a little nervous about her running 100 miles or super excited for her. And my dad was just like, oh man, I'm just super jealous. And and the interviewer was like, okay, I didn't really expect you to say that. And I was like, you're going to come, right? And he was like, but I'm not running. And I was like, you can come and you can watch me run. Like, doesn't that sound interesting? And he came round, and it was a really good experience for him. But I'm more excited about the day that he gets to run it.
I can imagine he's also more excited for that day too. Is he coming this year? Is he going to be there as crew or pacer or any of that sort of thing? Does he want to take it in again?
Yeah, so he's coming back. He's actually probably just boarded his plane now. So he's running the Broken Arrow next weekend, the 50K. And my brother is coming across, so he's actually in San Fran now, and he's pacing me from Forest Hill to the river. So awesome. It's a very family event this year.
Before I start getting into what happened between last year and this year, like how did training differ? How do you feel? All that sort of stuff. Let's get to some more of these live questions. Kim's being super patient. I realize I'm looking through your list of questions like, oh, there's a lot.
There is a lot of questions. Yeah.
I should stop talking so much.
No, this is good. Great. We have a very active audience tonight, which is awesome.
Yeah. Shelly in the chat room wants to know what your favorite ultra distance is.
Oh, good question. I think I really like running for 8 hours. Like that kind of 8 to 10 hours. How long I cover in that depends on the terrain. But I like the idea of, seeing a sunrise and then being done and going to bed within a reasonable time. So yeah, that's probably like the hours that I like. Yeah. So Western States is a long time.
Not saying you can't get it done in 8 to 10 hours.
I know.
Depends on how much cake you're able to get in. Let's get to one more live question.
Yeah, a question from Denise in the chat room. Denise says, Lucy, other than your dad, who has been the most influential or inspirational person to you in your running career?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably, I've always looked up to Emily Forsberg. I've always looked at her as kind of, she's always been so happy and balanced. And when I joined Salomon, she was kind of the person that mentored me. And then she coached me for a year and a half. So she kind of when she was injured, she put her energy into helping me. And I've always kind of looked up to her and reached out to her. So she's definitely helped me guide my way through this.
Wow.
That's awesome. I mean, what a talk about all-star, being able to also take you under her wing and like coach you and stuff like that. That's a good get. Yeah, Emily's fantastic. I can only imagine what that was like for you. I do want to start talking a bit about what happened over the course of this year. So after last year's states, finishing third, which as a debut at the distance and at that stage is amazing. And you obviously made quite an impression on the US ultra running scene, the global ultra running scene. You got a spot into this year's race by finishing top 10. Did you have an intention of training differently, looking at the race differently? How did you go over the last 12 months between the last states and this states with your training and with your growth as a runner?
Yeah, so I when I finished states, I went to Mexico. We surfed, and me and my dad just hung out and ate tacos. And then I kind of went back into running too quickly. You know, on reflection, I look back and I'm like, it was really dumb, Lucy. Like 10 days off is not enough. And then I kind of, you keep traveling. I went to Boulder, and everyone runs in Boulder, everyone's an athlete. And I just kind of, I was staying with Hillary Allen, and she was training, and we were doing Trans Rockies together. And then I was at Hard Rock, and people wanted to do Soft Rock. So I went out and did that. And I just fell out of love of running when I hit Europe for OCC at the UTMB. So I did that, and then I kind of came home and had to have kind of like a second version of the recovery. And so I took some real time off, which is kind of the first probably like 3 or 4 months that I had of maybe 2 months of unstructured training. And then this year, like January 1, I was like, yeah, okay, like let's get rolling again. And I rolled my ankle on a run and was out for kind of 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And then I just really struggled to find any rhythm, and just it was kind of, I felt like every time I was getting into something happened, whether it be in life, in my body. And so, last year prior to Western States, I had 25 weeks of like the best build up ever. I had never had my mind focused so strongly. All the races I did went really well, but I look back and I'm like, actually, I think I was burning the candle. Like I was already racing, and I look back and I'm like, I think I lost Western States because I won a race in February, March, and April, and they were unnecessary. And so this year I've just really focused on not racing so much and just making good training, keeping it really relaxed, and focusing on nutrition, which was a big thing that let me down last year at Western States. So kind of nailing that and doing just really easy running and practicing that. Yeah.
Just hearing you talk like that is also very mature, in the sense that we so often hear stories, and even guests on the show talk often about overtraining, over racing, over committing. And it's not often you get to hear them sort of reflect and realize, but maybe I did too much too soon. And it's really difficult for people to even say that. Like in hindsight, I ran too much or I raced too much. It's difficult for people to sort of come to that realization. So for you, so young, but also very seasoned in ultra running, it's a mature outlook. And I think that's really great. So this year you essentially approached it differently in that you didn't commit to as many bigger projects and that sort of thing, and sort of focus just on states.
Yeah, so it's always been like when I've had like Western States, for example, I feel like to respect that race, it's my only race. Like I don't know what I'm doing afterwards. I have no plans because I want to give everything. I don't want to be halfway through the race and be like, oh, like I have UTMB in a few months. Like I can just push my focus over. And I feel like that's just respectful to the race, and especially Western States, one that people, would die to run in. So yeah, this year I think I've just really been like, all right, let's just be super amped on being on the start line at June 29. And, everything else is just hanging in the barn until then. So it was just kind of like, let's just enjoy the process. Cause I think last year I was just so specific towards it that I kind of life didn't exist. And it was awesome and it was super cool, but I didn't think you can do that super regularly.
Yeah, no doubt. And do you feel better going into this year's race? Do you feel fit? Do you feel healthy? Is that pressure being taken off?
Yeah, like I'm uninjured. I'm super amped and super excited to have another crack. I don't probably feel, because I haven't raced as much, you don't have that kind of, those nice podium results sort of telling you that you're doing well. And a lot of my running and being here has been actually slower than last year, but I think that I was doing my runs last year too fast. Like Memorial Day training camp last year was like crazy. It was kind of like every run I uploaded to Strava was just like, oh, you took all the crowns. And I was like, oh, wow. And then this year it's like, and you're not in the top 10. And I'm like, oh, but it felt a lot easier, And so I think that, I think that I'm in better shape, probably mentally. And I think my body will bounce back better because of my physical state too.
It's like I can't tell you how many guests we've had on here who've talked about states or who have so much experience at states. And you look at the guys like Jeff Browning and Ian Sharman and those who return year after year to run this. It's a brutal event. It's not, 100 miles in and of itself is a brutal distance. Western States is no slouch because sometimes it can be extremely hot. This year, it sounds like there's going to be some fun snow sections, high water. So you're dealing with a race that has so many facets to it. Just being fast and being like, or having all the course records, that's not everything, for a victory. We look at people in past history, like Andrew Miller, and people who are patient and strategic with their race can win this thing. So I think this is really interesting. Like, I look at you and I'm like, I think this could be a really big year for Lucy with the experience that you have based off of last year. And that's really exciting. Like, I think the whole female field is going to be bonkers this year, yourself included. No pressure, but there will be cake. There will be cake at the finish line with your name on it.
Perfect.
Let's get to some live questions.
Yeah, a question from Deb in the chat room. Deb says, Lucy, how do you feel about the heavy snow year up in the mountains at Western States? Are you trying to prepare for it currently?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I went out for Memorial Day and ran Robinson Flat to Forest Hill, and we were 7 miles of snow for that point, which is at the 50K mark or 30-mile mark in. And then I went up the last weekend and there's only a mile of snow. So it's melting really, really fast.
That's faster than I anticipated.
And then I was up at Squaw and I tried to go up the escarpment, and a mile in I had like skiers and snowboarders coming at me. And I was like, this is crazy. So, the way I can't really control it. So I'm like, preparing in that I've got some shoes that have a bit more of a gaiter on them to stop snow and stuff falling in.
Nice.
And the debris. But I think that the snow is just going to pace me, because that was what I went fast last year at the start. And I think that with the snow, it'll slow me down. I'm like really open to being super patient through that section. And it just looks like a totally new course. It's so beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, Kim had to go take care of our dog. Our dog is literally like wanting to run around the house right now. So Kim just stepped out for a brief second. I'm looking at her in the other room. She's like trying to wrangle our dog. But just following the snowpack reports over the last few months and seeing where it is going, it's an insane snow year in California. So it'll be really interesting to see how that comes into play as strategy and also as a wild card factor. There's going to be so many neat, cool nuances such as this that are going to help shape this race in the early miles, which I think could help and not help a lot of people. But one thing that I wanted to kind of touch on as well, you mentioned earlier about nutrition last year. We can talk about the watermelon, because I know the watermelon is a huge part of like the branding and everything like that. But what was the nutrition mistakes that you were talking about last year? And what do you follow as far as nutrition, and how is that going to come into play this year? Are you doing things different, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So last year I had a great plan. I wrote down an awesome plan, but I didn't expect to be leading. And the thing that I did, the problem that I had was that I thought that because I was leading, I could not stop. It was all so exciting. It was all so new. I came into checkpoints and the the atmosphere just like carried me through and out the other side. And suddenly I was like, huh, I didn't even eat anything. I didn't pick anything up. So I kind of ran pretty depleted into Robinson, and then left Robinson, having a few pieces of watermelon, but that's not enough to get you through the canyons.
Right.
And then it started to get hot, and the last thing I wanted was like a gel in the heat. And it was kind of imploding from there. So then when I got to Michigan and then to Forest Hill, finally, like, Dad had gone to the supermarket and just picked up anything and everything. And I just had like a buffet meal to get me through. So it was kind of, I probably had before 50Ks, maybe 1 or 2 gels.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, nutrition's never been my strong point, and that's where the watermelon comes from, is that I've done 100K races where I've fueled primarily on Coke and watermelon. And you can get away with that in 100K. And I've done it plenty of times, and my body's pretty accustomed to it. But 100 miles is a totally different story. And so this year I've been focusing on just like trying some different things. And, I've been playing the Spring Energy, which I've been really, really enjoying. And because of my diet is generally made up of what Spring Energy is made of, my stomach is just like, oh, sweet, we know how to handle this. Whereas I don't think the gels sat so well because I'm eating sugar in that kind of form. So yeah, just like been trying like potatoes and wraps and rice balls, and yeah, just playing around, which has been cool. It's like such a fun thing to try on runs. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna like eat this sandwich today, and that's my training.
I mean, I love that. And you're primarily plant-based, vegan. I mean, is it specifically vegan, or is it vegetarian, or is it all? Is there any sort of?
No, it's like plant-based. Yeah.
I
wouldn't say vegan.
I think it's amazing though that you're at that stage where you can like experiment and have fun with it and sort of see what works and finding something that does work for this year's race. We were just talking about nutrition, and I feel so sorry because Gus all of a sudden was like, I need to go outside, and I don't care what I need to do to get your attention to do it. Gus is our little dog.
Oh, cute. What kind of dog is it?
He's a Cavalier. King Charles
cute.
Cavalier Spaniel.
Yeah, beautiful.
He's a bit special needs because he had a jaw removal, so his tongue is out completely all the time. Like, he's just looking at me with this giant tongue right now. Like, you can stop talking about me, Dad. But we were just talking about nutrition. I know Kim has a couple of these questions pulled aside as well. And I will let you get to one of those if you've got one pulled aside.
Oh, nutrition?
No, we just talked about nutrition, but any question that you've got. Because I've got another
okay.
question in my head, too, if we want to.
Did you talk about the watermelon already?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, but
I missed it all.
But that's, she worked on watermelon last year with her training in Western states. But what made that become the branding? I think that's another thing I wanted to touch on. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did a race in Cape Town in South Africa, the Ultra Trail Cape Town. And I finished the race and I had a great run. I won the event and I set a course record. And then I came back to Australia, and the morning show messaged me and said, do you want to come on and talk? And I was like, yeah, sweet. And you know how they put your name up and then underneath they put kind of what you're known for? It might be like, Ethan Newberry, the ginger runner, whatever. And they put for me Lucy Bartholomew. And I thought it was going to say like Ultra Trail Cape Town winner or something. But it said like, known for her excessive amounts of watermelon eating. And so the whole of all these people on Instagram were suddenly like messaging me and being like, how much did you eat? And I was like, it wasn't that much. It was just that every photo was at an aid station where I'd have one hand with like a watermelon and one with a banana or something. And it kind of just started from there. It was just like suddenly I was known for it and I just rolled with it. Yeah.
I'm so glad that it was watermelon, because like I'm thinking in my head of going, oh God, what if it's just another food item that you just really crave at an aid station? So for me,
yeah, it's not like the pickle
cookies
or something.
Or like, right. Thank goodness it was watermelon, which is like an adorable logo and a really good branding and all that sort of thing. Ethan Newberry, the person who won't stop eating waffles. I do love me some waffles. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a question from Shelly, and stop me if you guys already talked about this. Shelly asked, Lucy, who are you most excited to run and compete with at Western States this year?
Oh, well, I'm always excited to run with Courtney. or to be on a start line with her. Last year, she's such an amazing person, an amazing athlete, and when she passed me, it was probably the highlight of my race. She was listening to Michael Jackson, and she was just so happy, and I kind of, I wanted to be like that all day. I was just like, okay, she's like this, I can do this. And so her, I mean, I think all the athletes are amazing. All the women are insane this year. I think like Amanda Basham, it's really good to be back with her, and then like Camille Herron, I think she's incredible. Hopefully her Hemi's all right. I mean, oh man, off the top of my head, I can't say anyone in particular, but I'm just super honored to be on the start line with them. Yeah.
And that kind of brings up another good question that I had earlier, just regarding competition. And how do you look at competition? Is it, are you gunning for first place, or are you just really excited to sort of have the camaraderie amongst really competitive field? And when you pass runners, or when runners pass you, is it a conversation or is it battle mode? Like what is competition for you in these sort of scenarios?
Oh, it's a conversation. It's like, please talk to me. Like I'm not like built off competition. I would run regardless of racing, and it's just right now it's a nice thing to be doing. So especially in these races, when Courtney came past, she was like, jump on the train, Lucy. And I was like, dude, this train is dead. Like, I am so cooked. And we had a laugh, and she stuck with me for a little bit. And, it's about having fun at the end of the day. And I think that, I really run with a love for running, and I love for these people. And, even in the bad moments, it's like, it's awesome to be able to kind of share that. I'm not a run focused, like a straight down blinkers on kind of person. But I'm just smile and tell people good job. If they're having a good day, then man, I'm stoked to see that they're having a good day.
I love that. Super positive. Kim Wrinkle in the chat room brought up the string cheese. For my 100, string cheese was the item I happened to have in my pack for 9 hours. The same string cheese.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I kept pulling it out, and like,
I was like, if you're not going to eat it, let's get rid of it. You're like, no, we need to.
I'll eat it at some point.
That would be your.
That would be my Ethan Newberry
old string cheese guy.
Can you bring out a T-shirt with that?
Oh my God, it'd be the worst. It's such a terrible logo. I mean, no one would know what it is. It's just a little rectangle. The saddest branding ever. Well, great. Now I got to do it. Let's get to a couple more live questions, and we'll move into the after show.
Yeah, a question from Nathaniel in the chat room. Nathaniel says, Lucy, how did you end up getting chased by emus and camels in the Simpson Desert?
Yeah, so after that 100K that I went and saw my dad do, I signed up and found 100K that they would let a 15-year-old girl do. And I did that. And then I kind of fell in love with the long distance running, and my dad was finishing a race that they wouldn't let me in. So I was, how you're at the finish line when you're not able to race and you're kind of a bit stroppy. And I was walking around, and I found this tent for this race called the Big Red Run, which is a 250-kilometer race in the Simpson Desert in Australia. And it's kind of like the beginner's version of the Marathon des Sables series. But they carry your gear, so you don't have to carry it all. And I found it, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I spoke to the race directors, and they were like, yeah, we'll cover your entry fee if you can get yourself there. And they thought it was awesome publicity to have a 16-year-old girl doing it. And so I signed myself up that day, and my dad finished his race, and I said, oh, I've got my new next race. And he's like, oh, what is it? I was like, oh, it's a 250K race in the Simpson Desert, and it falls perfectly into school holidays. Like, it's perfect. And he blatantly said no. And I started to pick up shifts at the bakery that I was working at, and I knew how I needed to get a plane to Brisbane and a bus into the desert, and I was going. Like, I was going to do it. So he didn't talk to me for 3 months because I went and did it. But it was during that race that I was running alone on the second day and had just like emus and kangaroos. It was the most Australian thing you'd ever seen. Running along, and it was super, super awesome. But that was kind of like my first real experience of getting out and doing something a little bit different. And I think that's where my mom and dad were kind of like, oh, she's going to do it whether we like it or not. So we'll support her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mitchell in the chat room is saying that Australia lost a war to emus. Is this a true story?
Lost a war?
That's what he says. It says Australia lost a war to emus. True story. And someone else says, I've heard about that.
I've not heard about that.
This must be it. I don't know if this is a chat room joke or whatever,
Yeah.
but now I'm like, wait, what? Who would ever have a war with emus? They seem so innocuous. It is such a pleasure to have you on the show, Lucy, and your spirit and energy are just so positive and contagious. I'm so excited to see what you can do at Western States, but also know that you're just going to have a good time no matter what. And like, that's really exciting. Before we move into the after show, though, because this is Lucy's first time on the show, we do have a segment that we like to call the Quickie Question Quiz. It is a rapid fire series of 10-ish questions that you just got to answer with the first thing that comes to your head. When you are ready, Lucy, I will rip through them as fast as we can, and hopefully you get a good score.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
What was your very first race?
The Valhalla 50K.
Favorite place to run currently?
Norway.
Road or trails?
Trails.
Bucket list race?
Transvolcania.
Favorite running movie?
I don't think I watched a running movie. I guess Unbreakable.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
Oh, MasterChef.
That's a good one. Favorite pre-race meal?
Watermelon.
Favorite post-race indulgence?
Burrito.
Great choice.
I
And
feel like I'm in the right place for that.
yes. And your current running shoes, or maybe what you're going to run Western States in?
So I'm going to run in a prototype for Salomon.
Nice.
So it's a mixture of 3 shoes. The Salomon Sense 7s, the Salomon Rides, and the Ultras. But my favorite commercial shoe is the Sense 7s.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Lucy. You just won.
Yay!
You passed the test. You passed.
I'm not competitive or anything.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. But you just high-fived everyone as you passed them. Congratulations, you passed the test. What a great show. What a super fun, just delightful show going into Western States next week. A big shout out to our guest tonight, Lucy Bartholomew. Lucy, can you let people know where they can follow you and find you on social media so they can follow along for Western States, all that good stuff? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on, I have a page on Facebook, Lucy Bartholomew. I'm on Instagram as Lucy_Bartholomew. And then other than that, I'm really just on Strava as Lucy Bartholomew. But yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out, I love replying to all the messages I get. And so thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And again, our guest tonight, Lucy Bartholomew, just a delight to have her on the show. Also, follow her on Instagram for sure. She's got a huge following there, and it's really cool to see all the adventures and stuff that she gets up to. If you would like to continue our chat with Lucy, you can, because tonight we're going to do a real fun after show with her. Just go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. For as little as $1 a month, you support everything that we do here. That's basically the whole pitch, but we do after shows after every Ginger Runner live, tonight included, with our guests. So each and every Monday you get access to that after show. We'll get to ask all the questions that didn't get asked and a couple of additional questions as well. So a big shout out to our guest tonight, Lucy. It's awesome to have her on. Western States is happening in 12 days. Can't believe it. It's going to be snowy and
Hot.
a lot of boats involved this year, and hot and all that good stuff. Before we wrap our show,
And cake.
And cake. There'll be lots of cake, Lucy says in the background. We have one last segment that we'd like to do on the show where we recognize a member of our viewing audience, a GR crew member, and it's a little segment that we like to call our GR crew member of the week. We get to highlight some pretty cool people doing cool things, breaking down barriers and walls, and pursuing their goals and crushing them in the process. Kim, who is this week's GR crew member of the week?
And not only pursuing their goals, but helping others pursue their goals. So
Love
GR
it.
crew member of the week this week is Neil Stavely. Neil says, I helped pace my fiance to finish her first ever trail half marathon, which was a massive achievement for her as she suffers with arthritis and can hardly walk some days, let alone run. Neil goes on to say, I may have gotten a little emotional as we crossed the finish line together.
The photo was also posted on our Facebook crew for Patreon supporters, and it is just a fantastic photo. It's full of joy and happiness. Neil,
Yes.
congratulations to you and your wife. Just we love hearing that stuff. So congratulations, you are our GR crew member of the week. Again, if you're watching live, we'll see you in the after show. Go to patreon.com/thegingerowner. I think that's it. Am I forgetting
That's
anything?
it.
Cool. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. I know I am. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.